Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we're looking at another episode of my game development logging journey from, YouTuber to a game developer, trying to see the aspect of game development from both sides. Today's video, I think, is more of a shout out than anything else. And, here on the screen, what you're seeing is my initial exposure to developing and designing a tiny little combat system, which I've kind of shelved right now anyways. But it was really interesting to start this process, and I was using a tutorial by a gentleman called Lariat, so shout out to him. He has this series of tutorials on YouTube that does extensively cover a lot of things, and the way he teaches it, he actually answers questions while he's working, so you actually understand why specific things are being done. So that shout out goes out to him. Now, one of the really cool things about this whole thing was initially when I kind of started, I got bored with my level design stuff, so I decided, why don't I jump into something else? And I felt, developing combat mechanics would be, something that would be interesting. So I picked out a Paragon character. For those of you who don't know, these Paragon characters are free assets that Epic Games took from their former game, Paragon, and then gave it to, people who want to use the Unreal Engine to learn. You can use them however you want, actually. You can even use them to make your own game, as long as you follow all of Epic Games rules and use it in only Unreal Engine projects and all of the things that it's subject to. And so it's just free, has a lot of animations already set up. And so I took this one character that I haven't really seen anybody actually do anything with, and the character's name is Yin, and I started trying to program a usable and workable physics system with her weapon. She has this weird lightning whip thing, and I don't really understand fully how it works. So I picked it up and I started messing with it. And, around the end of the video, I'll kind of show you kind of how I got and where, I ended up as I was working through it. But, one really interesting thing was in this particular journey to understanding what combat mechanics would be all about, I stumbled across someone who has been really pivotal in this entire journey. And this is another developer, and his name is Jason DeHarris. Now, I'm going to have to do this shout out to him, and I don't know if he actually wants this or knows this is happening, but I don't care, because I believe he's been really pivotal in this journey to help me through a lot of the times that I didn't know where in the world I was going. Now, one thing you need to understand about this game development is a lot of the secrets are trade secrets, and they are pretty much hidden in a sense. Game developers usually don't have time to talk about game development. They're usually developing games. And from that perspective of working with all these little systems and messing around, I get it. So for him to take the time out to actually do what I'm about to show you, I think was really kind and generous of him, because he didn't have to do it. So one day I reached out to him and I asked him, I said, what do you guys consider when you're developing a combat system? And he said, it has to be fun, intuitive, and provide a challenge, something along the lines of that. I can't even really remember. But since then, he's started to make a lot of these threads that expose a lot of the things about combat. Now, on his feed, you're not going to see it because it's all, cluttered with other fun things he has interest in. But he then took the further step to create a blog where he archives all of his Twitter threads. Now, look at his resume. I didn't want to throw his resume out there, but I need to brag on this, because this is amazing to have stumbled upon somebody with this caliber of knowledge in combat design and game development. He is one of the developers and the lead combat designer on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. For those of you who know, I have sunk in 100 hours into this game, 109 hours into this single player, 20-something hour experience of a game. And that is on, just playing the game. I think I've played 2 or 3 runs of the game. As it stands, I have 32 out of 39 achievements on Steam, and I have pretty much completed 82% of the game. A few achievements are still kicking my butt, but, I haven't had too much time. My aim is to complete the game and then I've unlocked the new Game Plus mode and played on the hardest difficulty. So he is the lead combat designer, or was the lead combat designer for this game, and is currently working on something else within Respawn that is unannounced. I don't even know what it is. And he also was a senior combat designer on God of War Ascension and God of War 3. So his knowledge and experience, on combat design on video games is very helpful. Now, with his blog, one really interesting thing is he takes time to expose a lot of the combat aspects of different video games and AAA games as well. And I have been interested in actually how the developers, did some things like, design, enemy combat, all this stuff. And he basically catalogs all these and places them down and just allows for you as an aspiring game developer or somebody who's a gamer that's just interested in how your games are made and how the thought process goes into it. You can see a game developer break down different studios' methodologies, from games like Spider-Man to Hollow Knight to the God of War on PS4 to DMC and all of that stuff. It's so interesting how he breaks down a lot of things here. One of the really big ones that changed my entire outlook on on the entire game development cycle was when he actually did the one about designing enemies in melee combat. This one was on February 1st of this year, and he explained a lot of things. And he not only does that, he takes short snippet videos to explain specifically why these different things are done this way. So he will explain things like this particular enemy class. This is the Dragger. For those of you who've played the first God of War, he talks about this particular NPC and all of the attributes the enemy having: movement speed, attacking range, attack speed, basically freeze framing all these things and using them to showcase exactly what it is he's talking about. Now, for many gamers, this may not necessarily be a big deal, but looking at this stuff from the development cycle, here's Unreal Engine. And if you were to ask me and say, yo, how does this even relate, or how does this even work in your own case? I will tell you that that is absolutely invaluable content for me. Because if I were to show you, say, perhaps a character caricature in Unreal Engine, a lot of things like character movement is a big deal. So all of those numbers and all of those patterns he's showing, I can actually take them and implement them in real time with my current systems and test them out. So not only was it nice for me to gain an aspect of how these things are done, but to actually skip over the line and understand it from the eyes and from the experience of a AAA developer. Now, I have been fortunate to get all this information, and now it's not really in-depth information too. So for those of you who may be thinking, this was an easy process to decipher a lot of this information, let me just tell you that it's not as simple as that. You really do have to understand a lot of what it is that, it entails to be able to gather, or I would say use the information to help, design your project the way it needs to be. And, my own project is different from God of War. I mean, obviously. So the goals that they intended to reach and, the effect and feeling they decided that they wanted to have, is going to be very different. Another thing that he did as well, when he talked about the melee combat of the game, was to explain a lot of the different systems and how they make you feel powerful, talking about and using pictures to depict how the developers use different kinds of mechanics, like sucking the enemy close to you when you're attacking to make you always feel in a position where you can almost never miss your attacks. These are things that are deliberately done for the gamer to feel like, yes, the enemy is actually, getting hit and all of that stuff. Now, once I learned that, I immediately ran all over the internet and started to look for, ways that I could implement this in my project. And, at risk of spilling the beans too much, I went ahead and decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get a character and get my enemies put in place and start working on how to, attack them and make sure that I can actually snap to them. And fortunately, I was able to find a series of tutorials that actually showed how to do that. I need to go back and break down the tutorials. I replicated it and it worked. So that's the first thing. Now I need to go back and study exactly all of that. But again, before I even got to the point where I started to even dip my hands into the, world-class game design thing, or let me just say, dip my feet. I won't even say my hands, because hands would mean I actually know what the heck I'm doing. Right now I'm a noob, so we're not even going to be even talking that language. But eventually I was able to get to the point where I started to understand physics and understand collision systems and how they need to work. And if you notice, like I showed you and I promised you I was going to show you how it all entailed. when I first started with this whole whip project, she was basically hitting air. Nothing was being hit. There was no collision mechanic in here. And eventually I started to work and, define and redefine parameters. And within a game engine, these things are not too difficult if you know where to look. I think knowledge is the main issue. And eventually I started to understand how all of this stuff kind of works, and realize that I needed to continue to experiment more to continue to gain a deeper understanding. And it's been such a blast. In fact, I was able to design this particular mini I would say area. It's a mini area that comes with Unreal Engine, but I filled it up with all of these physics agents that when you hit them, they simulate physics. And I just started to mess around with them. And then I found myself even messing around with something called time dilation, which, if you notice, is running really slow. But that's a really nice effect that kind of went in with all of this stuff, because I remember just doing this for, several minutes, just being so happy that I was able to use a weapon from a character to collide with an inanimate object. This is not even colliding with, say, an enemy character of a design. This is just colliding with an inanimate object. And it was a really, interesting time. And I would say a pleasure to be able to learn this aspect. And so these were the stomping grounds of understanding this stuff. These were the hours spent, designing these systems, or I would say interacting with them, because these systems are mostly designed, by the way. All you have to do is learn how they work and then interact with them depending on your own depending on your own needs or whatever it is. So with all of the collision settings and all of that stuff, the light started to shine more and more on what this is about. Now, what is even the purpose of making, a video like this? Like, why would I even bother talking about this particular process? Well, one, I want to talk about it. I mean, there's no doubt. I told you guys that we were going to be discussing this stuff as, I was moving through the process. And number two is what you're going to hear over the course of this, because this is a transition. This is not necessarily just an explorative, venture. This is for me to be able to get my mind more in line with what it means to actually be a game developer, so that I can speak with a more informed perspective on game development. And I have to say, a lot of the games that I've played that I really love and enjoy are games that are melee combat based. So that's one. So if you guys notice, my channel is covering only one shooter. That happened to be the only shooter that resonated with me in almost all of my years of, of gaming. I mean, there have been some others, but they don't have the continuity which The Division has. And so in kind of finding this, this developer on the internet, I think it really did change my outlook. I think having somebody of his experience and magnitude and exposure was also a catalyst to continue, because I have to tell you, there were days where I thought, there's just no direction to go. And, somebody with his expertise and with his caliber, by the way, he does have a resume of actually playing and winning games. Evo 2008, 8th place. Evo 2002, 3rd place. Or Evo 2K2. I don't know if this is the Evo, but, he's also a seasoned Street Fighter 2 player. He's not just, somebody who just knows how to make melee combat games. He's also a very grounded combat gameplay, I would say connoisseur himself. So he knows what it means to play and enjoy fun combat. So on playing his own games, I guess I didn't really notice that he was already a seasoned gamer, or I didn't even know who was behind a lot of this. And yes, I'm sure he worked with a team. I mean, I'm giving him a lot of credit, but in understanding and leading a team to successfully put out combat that is enjoyable, even to the tune of a gamer like me spending a lot of time, just digging deep into the game. And by the way, I think I have to say, by the time I realized, his work, I think that added an extra 30 to 35 hours of playtime to this game. I think I was getting closer to 60-70 hour range, and then once I realized that, oh, this guy was the person involved, I then just fired up the game just to continue to study the combat systems and how they implemented them. And boy, am I just so delighted that I've been able to pick these games up. And I'm so delighted that we have creatives in the industry that are bringing not just good video games, but value to the gaming community. So I'd implore you guys to check out, his blog, check out his Twitter feed, follow him. He announces all kinds of stuff, job openings. For some of you who may be, in the development space, who are game developers, I think they're hiring, and Respawn might be something you want to explore. and you can ask. He seems like a person you can ask questions. I asked him some questions, and he answered some. He didn't answer because I think I kind of went, way in there like, oh, so how do y'all do this? And he probably was just like, shut up, son, sit down and learn. And I was like, okay, because I want to know. But there's some things that are still going to be industry secrets that cannot just be put out there because the studios have to maintain their competitive edge, and I don't blame them for that. In fact, I would like for them to keep their competitive edge as well because they've been able to serve, me and a bunch of other gamers, as time goes on. But nonetheless, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who've been watching these videos as well. And I just wanted to catalog this particular phase of my, I would say, exposure, and how fortunate I've been to be able to find resources and people that can help, especially with today's world where, the internet is kind of your gateway to learning a lot of things that you naturally will find very difficult to learn. Anyways, let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think? I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.